We can help end poverty for good.
Moonstone Minneapolis is a queer-owned, community-focused gift shop in South Minneapolis centered on curiosity, connection, and self-discovery. Explore astrology, tarot, crystals, herbs, mindfulness, and spiritual practices in a welcoming environment for all backgrounds and experience levels. Located at 3304 East Lake Street in Minneapolis, Moonstone Minneapolis also hosts makers markets, classes, and community events. Learn more at moonstoneMPLS.com and discover a welcoming place to explore with curiosity and respect. Greg Bakun here. I've been talking for a while about how spooky, fun, and fascinating the Minneapolis trolley tours are, but now there's big news. The Candlelight Ghost Tours now begin at the historic Pillsbury Club, a beautifully restored haunted mansion once owned by Charles Pillsbury himself. Believe it or not, the interior is nearly 200 years older than the exterior. How is that possible? You'll have to come out and find out. Before or after your tour, stop by the on-site market featuring a curated collection of handmade goods, artisan crafts, and locally inspired treasures. Perfect for picking up a keepsake to remember your haunting adventure. You'll also find exclusive spooky merchandise from Tales of the Crypt and Elvira. Then climb aboard the climate-controlled trolley as we travel through Minneapolis's haunted hotspots, uncovering ghost stories that locals would rather keep buried. The mansion is restored to perfection, and there is no better way to spend an evening. Visit MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for tickets and more information.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low of 59, then Wednesday, sunshine with a high of 84. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has the best roast beef sandwiches in the Twin Cities, but don't miss out on the chicken, fish, brisket, Philly steak, and more. Maverick's is located in Roseville on Lexington Avenue, 1 mile south of Highway 36. Visit mavericksbeef.com. Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story. This is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. I'd want to say real fast that just right before the weathers were talking about Mavericks, and I was just out there yesterday, and I feel like I have to tell you all every time I go. It feels like it's not, the experience isn't complete until you all know that I enjoyed a perfect roast beef sandwich. And we got to get everyone together and do that. We've been saying this for years. One of these days, we're actually going to do it, get everybody together who wants to go. We'll take a bus or something. We'll go down to Mavericks. We'll have real roast beef, chicken, fish, whatever. It's well worth it. And then we'll go over next door to their ice cream place called Sprinkles, and we'll have some ice cream. It'll be a lot of fun. I couldn't be more happier at the moment, quite frankly, because doing my favorite thing in the world, I'm doing my radio show. I have my cat at my feet, just laying, having a good time. And I have truly an incredible guest tonight. We've had Melissa St. Hilaire before on the program. We talked with her about her book, 30 Real Signs from the Afterlife, Recognizing and Understanding Messages from Lost Loved Ones. But, you know, after we got done talking, it was very clear that there is so much more that Melissa can talk about. And Melissa, as we just talked about, she's an author. She is a medium. She's a paranormal investigator. I mean, she's kind of doing it all. And I know that things are busy at the moment, but she gracefully gave us some of her time tonight to talk. And we're going to be talking about getting back in touch with your intuition and spirits. And I think this is super, super important. And I am glad that my guest tonight, Melissa St. Hilaire, is going to be talking through it with us. Melissa, welcome to GhostBox Radio.
Hello, Greg. Thank you for having me back on. So happy to be here.
So happy to be here. I'm really happy that you're back as well. And, I have to admit, the last time that you're on and when the show is done, I started thinking like right away, like, what can we get Melissa back on for? What can we do? Because you had so many wonderful things to talk about, and when we talked about your book last time, it was really a lot of fun. So I'm glad that you made some time for us. It's I know that a lot's going on, so thank you very much. So I think this is a very interesting conversation. When you suggested we talk about this, I thought, my gosh, this is really true. And I feel like, and let me know if if I'm already veering off a little bit of what we decided we're going to talk about here. But, when I think especially of like mediums, you always kind of think of them like on all the time,
Yes.
that they're always having that connection to spirit. And sometimes it's almost, you forget that, they're human as well. And that there's a lot of things that kind of can maybe move those goalposts a little bit. And this is kind of talking about getting back to it, but what's getting away from it? What does that look like?
Right. Well, yeah, getting away from it is a lot of different things. One of the major ways of getting away from it, getting disconnected, is grief. Honestly, just
Yeah.
plain grief. And and it happens to all of us. Everyone's going to experience that. Other things that can throw off us course is trauma, anxiety, pressure, being stuck in survival mode for too long. There's a lot of things that can really throw us off, divorce, moving, things like that too. But I really, in my experience, grief is really the number one thing that can really cause a disconnect. And of course, the unfortunate thing about that is, if you are grieving someone, that's when you most want to connect, because you want to connect with a medium or a spirit on the other side, right?
It's such an interesting thing, and I agree 100%. And I was thinking back 11 years ago today, my dad passed away, and I remember, and I bring this up because I was thinking about that very thing. I wasn't one to get connected to spirit a whole lot. I was kind of really starting different areas of my paranormal journey at that point. Even though I've been doing it for a while, I started to become more enlightened with the whole metaphysical, spiritual side of things. And I had a lot of interaction at that point. But I think I personally was in a different place than what you're talking about with the grief, especially when it sidelines you, right? I mean, it just
Absolutely.
bulldozes you.
It can just throw you totally off course. I mean, just recently, I had a very dear friend pass away,
Yeah.
and it sort of, rocked my world. It blindsided me. And I loved her dearly. She was a brilliant mind. She was an incredible painter and activist.
Yes.
And her name was Celeste. And what's interesting though is, shortly before I knew she had passed, I actually had some weird experiences in my home where things were being thrown across my kitchen, and my husband, who is not at all like, I mean, I don't want to say he's an atheist, but he's not a particularly spiritual person, and he was saying to me, Melissa, I think there's a ghost in the house. And he was kind of perturbed because he was like, why am I seeing it and not you? You're the medium,
Sure. Yeah.
And so then I was like, oh crap, I'm blocked. Why am I blocked? Now this, mind you, I hadn't even found out yet, like on a mundane physical level. And so here I am. I'm like, okay, I'm blocked. Something's going on. I got to take some time off. I got to fix this. And then I get a text message from a friend and telling me what had happened. And then it was one of those when your mind starts to unfold, because you're like, oh, this is why then and that. And I was like, okay, I see what's happening. And then of course I just went I just fell head first into grief,
Um,
just
yeah. Yeah.
ugly crying. I had to call and call my clients and say, listen, I just need some time because I'm a little off right now.
Can I ask you a question? Because not we're anywhere near in the same level of what you just experienced, but I did experience something slightly similar over the weekend where I had extreme amount of anxiety for Monday. And Monday came and something had changed and shifted that I wasn't expecting. And I'm historically famous for not dealing with change very well. And but I mean, it was like that was at me picking up on it. And I guess what the question I'm eventually getting to here, Melissa, is that ghost that your husband saw, was it actually you with your abilities and gifts picking up on it, even though you kind of was blocked to it anyway?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's a weird thing that happens when you spend a lot of time with a medium. Excuse me, my chair just made a noise. Uh, there's there's a weird thing that happens when you spend a lot of time with a medium, and that is you start to get more psychic.
Yes.
It's contagious in some kind of
Yes.
a weird way. Whenever I'm teaching a series of classes over time, I notice that by the end of the series, all of my students are like hyper psychic, and then like we'll be done with the class for a little while, and then they'll call me and they're like, "You got to start teaching again because I feel like I'm losing it."
Yeah.
But so I feel like in that way, he was sort of picking up on my energy, but I had blocked myself. And what was interesting is the way that he described the ghost. He didn't know, he didn't know this person. He wasn't friends with her. But the way he described the ghost at the time, I was like, oh, it doesn't make sense. But then afterwards, I was like, oh, actually, that's exactly her. That's totally something she would do. That's how she would
Yeah.
act. And so there was a weird crossover between us.
That is just really interesting. Unfortunately. But the thing is also I was going to say another great way to get mediumship 101, like you just said with your class, is also being on a paranormal investigation, right?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
That just it's suddenly like, because I mean, and I feel that way because I haven't really unlocked any of my abilities the way that I really should have by now. But when I'm with my friends, and most of them are mediums, it's suddenly just like, oh my gosh, I'm picking up on this, and this. It's just like it opens up, and it's fantastic, quite frankly, when it's in a good situation like that.
It's awesome. I have another dear friend who, her name is Cheryl Plum, and she is my paranormal uh, partner, so to speak. We're a team,
Yep.
and she's Plum Paranormal, and she always says that when she first met me, she was like, "I'm dead inside. I have no feelings. I don't pick up on anything." And then after spending time with me, now she's like, oh, "I'm getting stuff." And
I'm
I love
amazing. It's interesting. I always felt like people, and I'm not saying Cheryl Plum, and I like the fact that you say her first and last name because she does need to have both names said.
Yes, she
Cheryl,
does.
she is a Cheryl Plum. But I meet a lot of investigators who almost they think that they have no abilities whatsoever, and they wear almost like a badge of honor, like I'm as psychic as a brick, that sort of thing. And it's like, if you just try, you don't have to be, the next, Teresa Caputo over there, even though that's, probably a bad example, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But still, but it's like, what's the harm in trying? I've never understood that when people, it sounds like Cheryl Plum is all about it, but a lot of my people that I've talked to are just like, absolutely not. It's like, what's the harm? There is
I
no harm
know.
in trying.
there's no harm. And honestly, we all have this ability. It's part of being a human animal. Do you know what I mean? Because, and like, I mean, I spend time with literal animals a lot. I
Yeah.
rescue cats, and I'm also an animal communicator. So I hear them all the time, and that's part of what tells me that we all have this ability, that we're born with it, because I watch the cats and they're having whole full-blown conversations without making a sound.
My friend Morgan, who was actually on the program last night, we were talking about Salem's Lot. Today is her snake Galen's 22nd birthday.
Wow.
And to your point about communicating with animals and reptiles and all these wonderful beings, and the fact that she is able to pick up, when, no offense to Galen, a lot of people, might see a snake as a snake, right?
Right. Yep.
But Morgan, through her life with Galen and other snakes throughout her life, she's able to see the mood swings and the curiosity and the inquisitiveness and the actually taking part in paranormal situations. I don't think she's taking Galen out in investigations per se, but stuff that they have going on and whatnot. And it's a level that you would not expect, but we're just chatting back and forth today. It's a level I love hearing about because it's truly beautiful.
Oh, totally. And to that point, when you're talking about trying to get back in touch with your intuition, honestly, spending time with the animals is like a great way to do that. You know what I mean?
Yes, it is. And, I kind of want to take my break now here, because I know that there's certain areas you want to go into with us and talk about it. I don't want to cut you off, because this is really important. This is really good. So why don't we go ahead, take our first break. When we come back, we're going to continue exploring. Melissa's going to run us through a lot to help us get back in touch with our intuition, be able to, having our spirit with us, all that good stuff. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Moonstone Minneapolis is a queer-owned, community-focused gift shop in South Minneapolis centered on curiosity, connection, and self-discovery. Explore astrology, tarot, crystals, herbs, mindfulness, and spiritual practices in a welcoming environment for all backgrounds and experience levels. Located at 3304 East Lake Street in Minneapolis, Moonstone Minneapolis also hosts makers markets, classes, and community events. Learn more at moonstoneMPLS.com and discover a welcoming place to explore with curiosity and respect. Greg Bakun here. It's nice to get out of the Twin Cities and take some travel excursion to some great locations. Minnesota has so much to offer, which is why I love traveling down to Wabasha and staying at the historic Anderson House Hotel. Opened in 1856, this beautiful hotel offers comfortable accommodations, has a delicious restaurant, and even a speakeasy in the basement to unwind with a drink. Located next to the Mississippi River and on Main Street, there is a lot of sightseeing and shopping to do too. To get more information, go to theandersonhousehotel.com. Greg Bakun here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville. Greg Bakun here. I've been talking for a while about how spooky, fun, and fascinating the Minneapolis trolley tours are, but now there's big news. The Candlelight Ghost Tours now begin at the historic Pillsbury Club, a beautifully restored haunted mansion once owned by Charles Pillsbury himself. Believe it or not, the interior is nearly 200 years older than the exterior. How is that possible? You'll have to come out and find out. Before or after your tour, stop by the on-site market featuring a curated collection of handmade goods, artisan crafts, and locally inspired treasures. Perfect for picking up a keepsake to remember your haunting adventure. You'll also find exclusive spooky merchandise from Tales of the Crypt and Elvira. Then climb aboard the climate-controlled trolley as we travel through Minneapolis's haunted hotspots, uncovering ghost stories that locals would rather keep buried. The mansion is restored to perfection, and there is no better way to spend an evening. Visit MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for tickets and more information. And hopefully you have nothing going on tomorrow, because I am going to invite you to June's Ghost Stories and Beyond at Billy's in Anoka. That is tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear, and normally we say that it's like, tell us your ghost stories, right? No, I want to know everything. I want to know if you've had stories of just seeing lights in the sky that you can't explain. Did something knock at you in the forest? Did you actually see an alien? Did you see spaceships? All that good stuff. I'd like to know all about that. So Char Savoy and I will be over at Billy's tomorrow. It starts at 6:30 in the basement. $10 to get in. Does not include food or drink. But don't worry, because burgers are half price tomorrow, and it's always good food. It's always a lot of fun. Good people out there. It's a safe environment to share your stories. We hope to see you tomorrow at Ghost Stories and Beyond. Now, my guest today, Melissa St. Hilaire, is an author, paranormal investigator. She is also a medium, and you got some stuff you want to share, don't you?
Yeah, so this is sort of a soft launch, kind of pre-announcement. We have a Paracon coming up, and it's going to be the first ever Paracon at the infamous Glen Tavern Inn in Santa Paula, California, and we're calling it the Symposium of Spirits. And I can't really say much more about it quite yet.
Yep.
But we will have early bird tickets coming soon, and we'll have, announcements in the next 2 weeks. So stay tuned to AmericanWitch13.com for more information and links on that.
That's your web address.
Yes.
I was looking for it. I couldn't find it anywhere, and I knew. So okay, now we're on the same page now. I'm trying to promote you. I'm like, I knew she had a web address, and I can't find it anywhere. Oh my gosh,
it's all good.
You can see my unprofessionalism live on radio. So could you say the name of your give your URL again, please?
Absolutely. It's www.americanwitch1313.com.
And if I remember correctly, there is a lot of great information on there. So you want to go check it out.
Yeah. And I'm going to be adding more too. I've just right now, I'm just kind of, I've got a lot going on. But
in your spare time, right?
In my spare time. Yeah. I'm going to be adding pretty much every spell that I have ever done to the website. Yeah. And you want to know why? I'm going to tell you why.
I do.
It's something I'm kind of passionate about. So back in the 90s, there used to be these awesome witchcraft websites where you could go and find all kinds of spells and information and all kinds of cool stuff. And even though I do think that witches should kind of create their own spells, there's also something to be said for not reinventing the wheel. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you find something that works, use it. You can change it to suit your own needs. But I'm sitting here on decades of practice and spells. I first started keeping a grimoire when I was a teenager, for crying out loud. So anyway, I've been thinking lately, it's time to put it all out there for people.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I think that's great. And you never thought about just doing a book, though? You want to make it free for everybody? Free for everybody.
I'll do a book I'll do another book. You know what I mean? At some point. But, everybody's struggling right now. The costs are astronomical. And I feel like there's a need for some free stuff right now, especially spells and, especially activism spells or what have you, whatever money spells, whatever somebody needs to better their life,
No, that's good. That's really good. Are you able to say if you're working on any books at the moment?
I can't talk about that yet.
So basically, you're saying you are is basically what you're doing. Yeah,
Could be, maybe. Yeah, sure.
Could be. Melissa's like, anyway, the topic of tonight's episode.
Right.
So yeah. Always look forward to what you're doing, and everyone needs to go check out your website. And do you have where do you like people to go for your social media presence that maybe is a great place for people to pick up what you're doing?
Instagram is I should say Instagram and Threads are kind of my two main homes,
Okay.
you know.
Yep.
I post a lot of nonsense to Threads, and then I kind of try to keep Instagram a little more professional. But they're all, you can also find me on TikTok and Facebook, and they're all American Witch 13. Super easy.
That's great. That's great. Now we are talking tonight about once you kind of get that disconnect from intuition and spirit, how to get that back. And so we spent the first segment really talking about, ways that you can get disconnected and whatnot. But now to get back to it, now to reconnect, is it simple? I mean, you'd think that you could just reconnect, but is it almost in a sense like, say, not working out for a while and you're trying to get back to it or something like that?
Yeah, I would say, if it was simple, we'd all just do it,
Sure. Yeah.
But, sometimes we can get really thrown off. And, I wanted to mention one last quick thing that can
Please
throw
do.
us off.
Please do.
Manipulation and gaslighting.
Oh,
right? Because if we find ourselves in a relationship or any kind of power dynamic with another person who is lying to us, manipulating us, gaslighting us, that can make us doubt our own instincts and not trust ourselves, right?
may I add to that because I have firsthand experience of that. And just you said to me off air, which is so important, is it's okay what you're going through, but also I think it's worthwhile to mention that sometimes getting back takes a hell of a long time.
It does, and that's the thing. Let's normalize it right now.
Sure. Yeah.
It's totally normal to lose connection to your own intuition, to your spirit team, what have you. It happens to all of us. It happens to me. I mean, it happens to everybody.
Yeah.
So A, normal. B, sometimes it can take a long time. You could be, you could be thrown off for years. Let's hope not, but it could happen.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to the manipulation and gaslighting, I find like that's harder to almost come back from. But there's this thing that I like to sort of tell people, or I have like a 5-question little thing that I do for myself. So when I sit there and I'm like, oh my gosh, something is happening. So I start with these 5 questions to ask myself. 1, what is the block? Can you even, of that first question, can you name what the block is? Can you see what it is? Like in my case, it was my friend's death. It was a little bit easier to name. Sometimes it's not so easy to name. Sometimes we have to take time with that. And then another would be, well, why is there a block? If say we know that my friend passing created a block, why did it create that block within me? Mm-hmm. What do I now need to examine within myself to see why the block presented? Right.
Right.
And then 3, that leads us into what purpose does the block serve? Because this is another thing to normalize. Sometimes we're meant to be disconnected, because, especially if we have some sort of a mental health issue, like years ago, I had a nervous breakdown and I got wildly disconnected, but I needed to ground again,
So you're saying the disconnection could be a kind of a jump start.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
A reset, if you will.
A reset. Yes, I will as it happens.
And then for 4, and then that leads us to 4. Okay. So we've named the block. We see what the purpose is. And now question number 4 is, should I remove the block? Because maybe it's supposed to be there. Maybe I'm not meant to reconnect right now. Maybe I'm meant to kind of sit in it for a moment and see what it's about.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. However, once there's a moment when you kind of tick over and you go, I'm done. I want to be, I'm done. I need to be reconnected now. And you kind of know when it's time,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then that leads us to the fifth and last question. How do I remove the block?
Yeah.
Right? Because
Yeah.
that's the biggest question that you can ask,
It's, and going from just thinking about it, my own personal experiences and stuff. I mean, sometimes it seems insurmountable, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It totally does. To the point where, I mean, I a lot of my mentees that I have right now are blocked, and most of my mentees, I kind of am with them for a couple of months and then they're kind of good to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I'll have some that I have to work with consistently over time because of these sort of either self-imposed blocks or blocks put on us by parents, other loved ones, etc.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Now, can people find those 5 questions from you in some way? Is it through a book or a website or somewhere?
Well, I of course, I would recommend my book, but I'm also kind of currently working on a class to teach all this stuff. So I'll probably post it as a Substack or a blog or something like that first, as I'm workshopping it. But I'm kind of still in that brewing stage of putting it together to get it out there for people. But also people can just book me, you know what I mean, for an intuitive reading. It's my least expensive reading. I keep it low price because I want to be accessible. And I can help a person I can help someone to answer the questions for themselves.
That's the main, and that's the thing that I always my soapbox when I have anyone with mediumship come on, or we do one question readings or whatever else, is the idea of people need to do the work.
Yes.
And that's always, it's hard, in the sense, because they're, especially if it requires something like shadow work or something like that, where it's you're going into places maybe you weren't expecting to go or want to go, for that matter.
Well, absolutely. And I feel like sometimes the reason why we have a block on our intuition, we can't listen to the inner voice or the guides, if you will, is because we're spiraling in other thoughts. Yes. You know what I mean? So in those cases, meditation and journaling is not going to work. For most people, I can say, okay, meditate, journal, auto write, whatever, and they can kind of course correct. But if you're spiraling, you can't spend that much time in quiet and stillness with your own thoughts. You have to find another way to sort of calm the inner nervous system to get back online. And for that, I recommend meditating with music, movement, like Tai Chi or yoga, or meditating with a guided meditation, someone that kind of talks you through it so you have a focus.
The word spiraling is one that I feel like I was close to, or did, probably more likely did, quite frankly.
Same.
Right? I mean, who am I kidding? And everyone who knows me knows, they're like, no, you did spiral, buddy. But for people who you say that you can recognize that you have the block, you recognize that part of it. But spiraling is, to me, something a little bit different, because that's where you really need to bring someone in, I feel like, to talk to, even if it's just a bounce off or just a whatever. Do you have any thoughts? I mean, one could say as soon as you feel like you have the block, but say that you're trying to do it yourself, get through it yourself, and you're just struggling. Do you have do you have an idea of when would be a good time for someone to bring someone else in those situations?
Well, to be honest, I'm going to say that if you're delving into shadow work, period, you should have someone to talk to.
Right. And I'm not thinking that. I'm just meaning more like that, what?
Yeah.
I'm having problems here. And is it now the time I should talk with somebody,
Yeah. I feel like if you can't answer the 5 questions, then maybe talk to somebody, you know what I mean? Just because if you're struggling to answer your own questions for yourself, then
Yeah.
that means the block is so deep that it's not even letting you see it.
Yeah.
And then that's when we need to call in reinforcement, and that's when, therapy is good, but hypnotherapy is good. Even an energy healer is good for that. If for some reason you don't want to go to traditional therapy,
Well, and I think that's the one thing that I kept thinking in my mind when we've been talking about this tonight is the correlation and really the overlap between something like therapy, going to an energy worker, psychology, even, the logic of it all playing into it. And I think it's important that people know that, because I think there are people who put these things in silos, and they don't ever think that this stuff is all connected, because they consider some of it being traditional and some not, but it all is interconnecting.
Oh, totally. It's the interconnectedness of all things,
Right.
to
Yeah.
quote Douglas Adams. But yeah, so, there's this thing where a lot of people, like, they'll put witchcraft in one compartment, and they'll
Yes.
put mediumship another one, and even psychic intuition in a different one. You know what I mean? And energy healing in yet another one, and then psychology over here. And the way that I feel is mush it all together. There's good in all of it. And, if there's something doesn't resonate with you, then just ignore that little piece. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And just to even break it down a little bit more, I think it feels different for everybody, but the idea of, you hear the word resonate, but what does it actually mean? And, like, for example, for
Yes.
me, resonate means that I could just suddenly feel it. It just feels right. It just immediately is just like, nope, that's right. That's it. No question.
Yes, exactly. It's like, the first time, I'm trying to think of something that I've tried. Let's go with HemiSync. Okay. So I read there's a CAA paper on a Project Gateway, and it talks about the Monroe Institute and HemiSync. And so I started talking about it with everybody because I was fascinating. And someone sent me the tapes for free that I could just listen to. And the second that I heard the first one, I was like, oh, bam, this is going to work for me. You
Right.
just know.
You
You
just
just
know.
know. And then other times, I've had experiences where maybe I took a class or something, and I'll sit in on something that someone's teaching, and I'm like, no, that's not true.
Without a doubt, like, just like that as well. And for me, resonating also, often just my whole body tingles. Like, it's right
Yes.
there. It's just like a tuning fork almost. It's like, yep, just all,
Mhm.
it feels good. It just feels good.
Totally. And
Uh,
that's actually something that I teach in my classes, and I teach my mentees to use your body
yeah.
as a barometer. We can use pendulums and dowsing rods and tarot cards and whatever, but you yourself, you are the perfect connection tool, so to speak, spirit connection tool. And, for example, I'll teach, clairsentience, which is, receiving messages by feeling it in your body,
Yep. Yep.
is what I have the strongest of. And you can just you can localize things, for example, let's say I'm like, I want to, like, if I talk about something I love, like ice cream or chocolate or something like that, I'm feeling it in my heart, and it feels good, and I like it. If I think about something and I don't like, I don't know, seafood, like I feel it in my gut and I don't like it. So we can even, like, tell where something is in our body, whether it's good for us or bad for us.
And even when you're talking about dowsing rods and pendulums and stuff like that, I mean, our energy is still taking an active part in that in some way. I mean, I'm not moving the pendulum with my own energy, but I'm the conduit, right?
Absolutely. And there's also, I always forget, I have like a mental block, idio something motor movement or whatever. I have a mental block with, like, the term that is, but our bodies will sort of subtly move things,
Yeah.
like, especially if you want a yes or a no. So there's a little bit of the body subconsciously doing things that's in there, but I find that useful because it's like, okay, great. Now I know what my subconscious is thinking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm really enjoying this conversation. And I think I often find when people who are watching the video portion of it, they're not putting anything in the comments, they're not putting questions in the comments. I think that means, because we have people watching, I think that means that they're just enjoying it as well. But I do want to put out there for people, if you have questions to Melissa about anything we talked about, feel free to put question in the comments. I'm going to take a break right now. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. I want to talk a little bit more about silos. I also make sure I'm not missing anything that Melissa wanted to talk about as well. On your questions also. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Moonstone Minneapolis is a queer-owned, community-focused gift shop in South Minneapolis centered on curiosity, connection, and self-discovery. Explore astrology, tarot, crystals, herbs, mindfulness, and spiritual practices in a welcoming environment for all backgrounds and experience levels. Located at 3304 East Lake Street in Minneapolis, Moonstone Minneapolis also hosts makers markets, classes, and community events. Learn more at moonstonempls.com and discover a welcoming place to explore with curiosity and respect. Greg Bakun here. It's nice to get out of the Twin Cities and take some travel excursion to some great locations. Minnesota has so much to offer, which is why I love traveling down to Wabasha and staying at the historic Anderson House Hotel. Opened in 1856, this beautiful hotel offers comfortable accommodations, has a delicious restaurant, and even a speakeasy in the basement to unwind with a drink. Located next to the Mississippi River and on Main Street, there is a lot of sightseeing and shopping to do too. To get more information, go to theandersonhousehotel.com. Greg Bakun here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville. Greg Bakun here. I've been talking for a while about how spooky, fun, and fascinating the Minneapolis trolley tours are, but now there's big news. The Candlelight Ghost Tours now begin at the historic Pillsbury Club, a beautifully restored haunted mansion once owned by Charles Pillsbury himself. Believe it or not, the interior is nearly 200 years older than the exterior. How is that possible? You'll have to come out and find out. Before or after your tour, stop by the on-site market featuring a curated collection of handmade goods, artisan crafts, and locally inspired treasures. Perfect for picking up a keepsake to remember your haunting adventure. You'll also find exclusive spooky merchandise from Tales of the Crypt and Elvira. Then, climb aboard the climate-controlled trolley as we travel through Minneapolis' haunted hotspots, uncovering ghost stories that locals would rather keep buried. The mansion is restored to perfection, and there is no better way to spend an evening. Visit MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for tickets and more information. And join me tomorrow on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. We are going to see the return of Moon Girl, mistress of the paranormal. We promised this when we had her on, I think back in April or something, that we were going to get her back on and do another round of numerology readings. And she's going to do that tomorrow for us. They were really fun the last time that she was on. So get your birth dates and your date, the time you were born and all that stuff together, because we're going to do some numerology readings tomorrow with Moon Girl. It's going to be a lot of fun. With me tonight, I've been talking all evening with Melissa St. Hilaire. We were talking about getting back in touch with your intuition and spirits. And in the comments, Andra says, when we're talking about that, we're not getting really a lot of questions. People are really into the program. She says, for sure, I'm absorbing what is being talked about. And it is very absorbing. And this is great. And, you know, one of the things I wanted to just kind of mention here real fast is we're talking about silos a little bit. And, you know, we find that within our own community, when even talking about, I think, paranormal and stuff with metaphysical and energy, because it's like my friend Shar would always say, what's the difference between the two? And technically really nothing. It's all about energy. We're all reaching out to energy. I know that there is differences, but at the ground level, though, it's energy. And even with that, we're siloing ourselves a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all energy, right? Everything is energy. Everything that we in the known universe is made of energy. So it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, literally everything is energy. And
Right.
that also sounds like a Douglas Adam, like from the book, from the Hitchhiker's Guide. Everything is energy, just kind of straight. Yeah, it is.
And I think people it's like we get so caught up in the mundane world and our modern society, and I think we get away from that.
We do, and we forget about. And there's something also when we're talking about like metaphysical stuff and paranormal. There's something about people. They think that when we're doing paranormal, it's all about because I think we've been trained through someone's been trained by watching the television shows that it's all about being. And I should be careful because my friend Andrea, who's watching, she actually produces a paranormal show, and that show's not like the ones that were on Discovery, where the ones on Discovery is always about trying to scare people.
Right.
It's not about educating, and not about just trying to show. I've always thought how beautiful paranormal is. Just spirit communication, and for mediums to do that and be able to relay that stuff is beyond amazing. But if I'm using like my spirit box, my ghost box, and I'm picking up conversation, words, names, whatever, to me that's just so amazing that it's actually going through a device so everyone can maybe hear that voice. I just find all of it so amazing.
I mean, it's so cool, and one time when I was doing an investigation at the, oh gosh, what was it? It's a famous house in San Francisco, and I'm blanking on what it's called, like the Weston House or Westing
Winchester?
House. No, it's not Winchester. It's a different
I
one.
don't know, where is Winchester anyway? It's California though, isn't it?
Yeah, that one is, I think it's like San Jose a Los Gatos, something like that. But this other one is in the heart of San Francisco, right on that big park with the full house, everything. And it's famous house, and it's famous because Anton LaVey had lived there at one particular time in his life. And I'm not like a, whatever, I don't, he's just a person. But but we were doing an investigation, and there was a lot of talk about the rituals and stuff that he did there. And so of course everybody was sort of trying to see if they could get him, and we did get we got a male voice on our spirit box, and we asked who it was, and it said Anton. Now whether it really was or not is up for debate, but I just thought it was kind of interesting. And then we asked for a message, and he said something like, "Nothing but energy."
No, it's the Black House, isn't it? Or is it still or is that different?
It's I want to say it's the Westfield House. Maybe it's called the Westfield House.
Right.
Yeah. Or Westfeld, maybe something like that.
So let me ask you this, because you bring up a very good point about all of this is like, it's an intelligent response to what you're asking, but we can never really hang our hats on those type of responses because we don't know. But once again, where does intuition and resonation apply to those situations? Because like I've had Lincoln and Mary Todd Lincoln come through, and once again I can't say with any definity that that's them, but I damn well am pretty sure it is. You know what I mean?
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's all we can say. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I've done seances and investigations where a variety of known and people came through, and I'm not going to list them all because I don't want to name drop, but it was like in the moments I'm like, is this even real? Do you know what I mean? Even though you kind of feel like it is, you're still going to question, you're still going to doubt, because that's just, it's natural, it's normal, and I think it's healthy, to be honest.
I'm just going to say, I think it's a really good thing to have that sort of that sort of air of just, it could be, I believe it is, but we just don't know, because it's I don't want to be pompous about it either.
Right, exactly. And I get
Mm.
people all the time who will be like, well, how do you know you're connecting with someone's grandma or it's a trickster energy? And there's a couple of different tells. One is usually if it's, when I'm bringing someone's loved one through, there's some sort of evidentiary mediumship that happens. They'll say like, I'll be like, oh, I'm seeing a red plaid shirt. And the person's like, oh my gosh, that was her favorite shirt. She wore it all the time. I don't know this person. I wouldn't know that about them. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Right.
it's providing information that I could not possibly know, you know? Um, and then the other for me is, and this also goes in line with trying to tell the difference between fear-based thinking versus intuition,
Yeah.
is if you're getting a message, whether it's on a spirit box, in your mind, however you're receiving it, feeling it in your body, if the message, it's like how I actually wrote a note because I didn't want to screw this up. Okay. Guides can deliver the worst news in the most calming way. Meanwhile, anxiety can turn the most mundane task into an insurmountable problem.
It's so true.
Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. And I think there's that's something to really think about there with that as well. Yeah, I like that.
That took me all day to write.
I'm glad it went over well then. Well,
Yay!
and the thing is too, back in the day, and I haven't done it for a long time, with my spirit box, I would do galleries. And
Yes.
I'd find that I would bring through people, but then I'd find that I would go off script, if you will, and start telling them what's going on in their lives. I'd read them. I'd actually read them.
Yeah.
Which is suddenly it's just like, and I remember being at the McIntyre Villa in Atchison, Kansas, and I had a bunch of people around me because we're just doing impromptu spirit box, and I'm like, okay, this is happening to you now. This is, and everyone, no one's like, you're off, and it wasn't like you're gonna wake up tomorrow, very bland sort of readings. It was like really something. But back
Yeah.
in the day, I would sit down with people to help bring through their loved ones so they could hear their voice. And to me, that's the evidential part to that as well, is I don't know what, Uncle John sounds like, but if they're asking for Uncle John and a voice comes through and they're like, my God, that's them, then that's in the right direction. My caveat to that, of course, is you hear any kind of sound through the spirit box, you might just fall for any sort of sound. It may not, it's hard with a spirit box. It's not easy. It has to be, for me, it has to be really clear,
Yes, I agree. And then that's also where intuition comes into play.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you hear something through the spirit box and you're like, that's not right. And then other times you hear something and you're like, oh, and you get chills and you're like, that's something is talking to me.
Very, very much so. We have about 5 minutes or so left. Is there anything regarding what we've been talking about tonight that we haven't gotten to we should really talk about before we wrap up here?
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes. Again, I have handwritten notes because I'm old
Great.
school.
I love it.
So I had just a couple of quick things. I'm just like a list, honestly.
Yes.
So there's one quick thing. So this is ways to check yourself. So this is when you are experiencing a disconnect and you're trying to reconnect. And so I have this thing where you check in with your body and your physical world first before you check your mental and emotional state. Why? Because sometimes there's really simple things that can throw us off. For example, are you safe? Are you in a safe environment? If you're not in a safe environment, bam, there you go.
Yeah.
Are you hurt? Check in with your body. Do you have a pain somewhere or an illness? Are you physically comfortable, or are you hungry, tired, what have you? Because any little thing can throw us off, right? And then I have this thing where, once you've kind of established that you're safe, you're full, you're sated, what have you, that's when you then switch into the mental emotional self, and then you do your check in there. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And oftentimes I get for that, I'd say, am I feeling this? Is this something that I am feeling, or am I taking on something from somebody else? That's another thing to ask, because maybe you're being too empathic. Maybe you're fine, but someone that's close to you is distressed and you're taking it on.
That's a good point. That's a
right?
really good point. Yes.
Because they say misery loves company. So if you're like living with someone who's depressed and all of a sudden you're depressed, you're like, I have no reason to be. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm sponging this other person's energy. That's my problem,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then let's see, I'm just looking at my notes real quick here. Oh, and then for quick ways, just a couple of quick ways to sort of help correct yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I have, if journaling doesn't work because you don't want to get too much in your mind, I do this thing called spirit scribbling, which is really just drawing mindlessly, and the idea is you have a blank paper and you just scribble. Don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about shapes or specifics or anything. Just scribble. And it turns into doodles, and sometimes it turns into poems and words, and sometimes it turns into something that looks like something like a butterfly or a hummingbird. And then you can like sort of scry it, look it up, in a dream dictionary or in my book or whatever, and find out what it means. And you can get messages that way too. And then lastly, I have a bunch more, but I know we're running out of time. Another one that works really well is to don't just go for a walk, but go for a mindful walk. And what I mean by that is give yourself a task for the walk. In other words, I'm going to spot 5 different types of birds or trees or flowers or whatever, so that when you're going for your walk, which the rhythmic walking will reset your vagus nerve system or whatever it's called. I always get that screwed up too.
Yeah.
It'll reset your nervous system so that you're like more chill. You know what I mean? And then that can actually also help to open you up. And then if you're looking for things, that can start to trick your mind into looking for your intuition, looking for signs, and you can even make that be your goal for your walk. I'm going to ask my guides for a sign and then see what you find.
That's fantastic. That really is. And I just want to say quickly as well, I mean, I don't walk like I used to, and I need to get back to it. But, the number of times you run across like feathers and stuff, which is fantastic. Also, what I used to do is I would walk and I would be having like a playlist on, and I would mentally ask the type of music I wanted to hear in this walk today and see if that would come through, such as I want slower songs today. I want, just whatever. And it's amazing how much that would happen. We got to go. Yes. Unfortunately, this was great, Melissa. Thank you so very much. I think this was absolutely wonderful.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime. I'm happy to be here. I love talking to you. This is awesome.
That's fantastic. Folks, I'm going to put all of her socials in our follow-up kind of summary, and it'll be there, everyone. First of all, Melissa, thank you so much for joining me. This was great. We'll be back tomorrow with numerology with Moon Girl, Mistress of the Paranormal. Everyone, have a fantastic night.